Welcome back to the channel, and we have an interesting video today. But before we get started, I want to do a quick review of some of the topics for the new people that are here. So one of the things that we talk about a lot on this channel is the fact that people do not truly exist in buckets. It's really a spectrum or a gradient of personality and energy, whatever you want to call it. So you're not always seeing one thing or another. Among men, you don't always just see one behavior. Among women, you don't always see one behavior. People love to do this because it's a little bit easier to understand if you are putting people in buckets, right? Because it's just a little bit easier. If you put most of the people, the men, in the bucket, then you can say, okay, all men act like this, all men act like this, all men do this. Same thing with women. You can say all women do this, all women do this, all women do this, right? So like for me on this channel, a lot of people know that I talk about three personality types, three main personality types. And then sometimes we talk about introverts and extroverts, which actually affect each personality type. And then of those three personality types, I'm always telling you that there's a hybrid. So there's the ability to have one foot in one personality type and another foot in another personality type. So really, a lot of the stuff that I teach you guys could technically be almost 12 different personalities. I know y'all didn't think y'all were learning 12, but it really could actually be 12 because as you start to get into the hybrids and the person's introverted or extroverted, that's actually going to open up a lot more windows for different types of people. So one of the things that I've always tried to get you guys to understand is that these people are out here. And one of the problems is, especially with social media, is that social media loves to focus in on the sore thumb or the type of energy that people tend to get all into their emotions about. So for men, the type of personality that really gets into men's emotions is really the extroverted, instinct thinking woman who is not humble. That is the one that gets black men going. You know, that is all the types of women out here that are having problems getting married and different things like that. Those are usually the women that fall into that category. And the reason why they fall into that category is just simply simple. They want to have control over their environment, and they walk in such authority that it doesn't leave room for a man to actually walk in his authority. And many of these women believe that there are men out there that can out authority them. But in reality, and I've even found this out with CSC, is that a lot of these women end up dating toxic men because they believe that there's a personality out there that's stronger than them, when in actuality, they're already at the strongest. So you're not going to get anything stronger unless it's toxic. But again, that is another story for another day. Now, today, we're talking about the awkward black girl, the quirky black girl, the weird black girl. And why am I talking about that? Well, I just did a video talking about introverted black women. And the reason why I show these things to you all is because what I'm trying to prove to you through this narrative is that there are lots of different types of black women. See, you have to recognize that there is this concept within people, within women especially, where they have what they want to be, what they aspire to be. And a lot of black women, especially thinking black women and instinct black women, which if you put both of them together, you're probably talking about 65% of the population at that point. These black women want to see upwardly mobile black women doing bigger and better things, right? That's what they want. And then the heart type women really love a romance. They love it when people are going through different emotions and stuff like that. And they will just eat all of that up because heart type women really love their emotions stirred. They're very close to their emotions. And so they like their emotions stirred up when they watch anything. It's harder for a heart type to sit there and watch Marvel films because while there is emotional connection between the characters, it's not the same. It's not like life or death or happiness and unhappiness, right? So it's a little bit more difficult for them to really attach, to those types of stories. So when you have people like Tyler Perry, and he's creating these films for Black women, and you have this upwardly mobile Black woman who usually goes through a situation where a guy does her wrong, emotion, does her wrong. Now she has to get over him and find new love, emotion, but she's still trying to build her business. She's still trying to become the best version of herself. And that narrative speaks to almost every other Black woman. And through that narrative, Tyler Perry has become a billionaire. It really is that simple. But the more we see this narrative, the more we believe that all the Black women out there are like that. And remember, for Tyler Perry and for a lot of the actresses that actually play these roles, this is actually who they are. It takes a lot of energy to actually want to be in front of people. It takes a lot of energy. And so it's very difficult for a lot of more introverted women and a lot of women, like in this particular situation, awkward, quirky type women. It takes a lot for them to end up in these spaces where they can actually influence the type of films that are made. I mean, Issa Rae, who did Awkward Black Girl, she is one of the exceptions. But here's the whole thing. There's a lot of awkward Black women. There's a lot of insecure Black women. There's a lot of quirky Black women. There are a lot of nerdy Black women. There are a lot of artsy Black women. And I wish that both Black men and Black women understood this, because if you're a Black woman and you're one of these types of personalities, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're a Black man, remember, these Black women exist in America. And see, a lot of times the Black woman that you're trying to get, that is who she is. And she's right here. But she doesn't have a screaming voice. She has a very quiet voice. And so you have to tune yourself in order to find her. But like I said, I'm all about marriage. And so I want you to find her if that is what you're looking for.
Today I felt like recording on the webcam for the vibes, but I'm going to be talking about the concept of the quirky/awkward Black girl. I feel like this trope has been somewhat on the rise in the mainstream media in the past few years, but I know a lot of people still want to see more of this character because there historically has not been nearly enough representation. Also, I'm going to be using quirky and awkward interchangeably throughout this video.
I'm awkward and Black. Doubt it, it's fact. Ain't with me, you're bad. Season 2.
And I do want to clarify, being a quirky or awkward Black girl does not just mean that you like white people stuff, and I think Issa Rae does a great job with this in Insecure and incorporating Black culture. The most defining thing about the quirky or awkward Black girl experience is that it's real and that it's actually lived in, and it's not just a stereotype, Which is why it's important to note that a key difference between the quirky Black girl and the previous archetypes about Black women is that the quirky Black girl was created by Black women, not by white people who wanted to keep Black people oppressed. But let's more broadly examine who the quirky Black girl is. She usually grew up in a middle-class family in a white-ass suburb, so from an early age, her survival tactic was to assimilate. She gets asked things like,
"Why you talk like a white girl?" You caught me, I'm rocking blackface.
It's racist. Is usually the only Black person in her friend group, and is a victim of tokenism. Having a phase where she heat damaged her hair from perming or straightening it too often is basically a rite of passage. She probably has interests, hobbies, and aspirations that are historically deemed non-Black, whether it's doing gymnastics, listening to indie music, or wanting to pursue a career in the arts. She feels too black for the white kids and not black enough for the black kids, and usually college becomes a turning point where she can find other people who relate to her identity struggles, whether it's at an HBCU or the BSU at a PWI.
All right, so I don't think I need to go too much more into, her video, but I think what she showcased was just this concept of, like I say, the quirky black girl, the black girl that doesn't quite fit into the white community, even though she grew up in the suburbs in a white environment, and she doesn't really fit 100% into the black community because she didn't really know how to fully get into the depths of the, prejudices that exist. And I just did a video about maybe 2 months ago about a black guy saying that even though he probably did not come up in the, suburbs, he just naturally gravitated to things that made him more of an outsider when it comes to black people. And he talked a lot about how a lot of black women did not want to date him. And I can even say for myself, remember, my background is media. And even though I am instinct based, for those that keep up, with my channel, I kind of went through something similar. In fact, when I was in high school, even though I did try to date black women and black girls, most of my friends actually thought I would end up with a white woman. And when I was in college, there was one guy who swore up and down I would marry a white woman. He just knew it. He 100% knew it. He was just falling all over himself, and every time he saw me, he was like, yeah, you're going to end up with a white woman. And it was because I did not showcase every single thing that is the stereotype of a black man. And like I told you guys before, I have a system in my car, I bump it sometimes. But if you guys saw me driving around Atlanta, I might not always be bumping, the latest hip hop or rap or whatever it is. I might be bumping more soul. And every once in a while, I'm going to bump a little pop. And so things like that make it totally different. And it's a totally different vibe, and so people, they get it, but then they don't get it. And see, this is one of the things that I'm constantly, trying to let everyone know is that there's all these factors of black people. It doesn't matter what you think you know. You really don't know it all because it's too many different versions of us. And we cannot constantly put ourselves or anybody else in different buckets. Because one of the things that will happen if you continue to put yourself in buckets is that you're going to miss out on really great people that might work for you. And especially for a lot of black women. I'm gonna be honest with you. The biggest problem with black women is the fact that they put black men in buckets and then they try to leapfrog into other races. But if a lot of black women would just stop putting black men in buckets, then they wouldn't have as many problems. And a lot of black men that follow me and honestly follow a lot of these people out here on these internet spaces, they know this. They talk about it. In fact, it comes up over and over and over again in so many videos because a lot of black men feel rejected by black women. Either they feel rejected financially, they feel rejected by personality, they feel rejected by their outside appearance. They're always in this constant argument that they're being rejected. And then the men who are actually getting all the women, when they actually finally talk to them, those men show no pity for these women, no pity at all. They basically talk in a way that basically says they don't mind using and abusing them and moving on to the next woman. And so I believe that one of the issues is that a lot of, I think people, period, I truly do think people, period. I do think men need to do this as well. But I do think for most, I still kind of have to lean a little bit more into the women a little bit and just kind of say, and like I say, ladies, this is not heavy on you guys. It's just, I think it's a little bit more with you because of the way that you fantasize men. I'm starting to believe that men's imaginations might not be as strong as they get older. Maybe that's why we don't fantasize as much But I think women still kind of lean into their fantasy just a hair more. And because of that, whatever trope you have that's playing in the back of your mind, that is going to be the trope that you're going to chase. That's going to be the one that you go after. And like I've told you guys before, your energy, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, goes before you. It goes before you. In fact, I've never seen a situation where it hasn't. In fact, even as I have dated, I've actually run into it. Like, there was a lady that I was dating. She was always talking about how the men that she had dated never had time for her. And she was saying that, they were always busy, and she would always end up in these relationships where the man might come over maybe once a week, spend 2 or 3 hours and then go home. And what was really funny was when she met me, I had lots of free time, which is rare. And so everything was cool or whatever. We went out on a couple of dates, and then I got really busy. And I felt bad because, she lived on the other side of Atlanta. So I always had to drive to see her. And it came down, believe it or not, to about 3 or 4 weeks where all I could do was see her once a week for a couple of hours. And so what had happened was her spirit had gone before her. Her spirit knew what type of relationship she would end up having with me, okay, at least for a time. And it created a scenario where even I played into something that I didn't want to play into. And see, that is how your energy goes. So it's all about the trope that you're playing in the back of your mind. That's why I'm always encouraging you guys to do what? Watch sitcoms that are more romantic, where you have a mother and a father, a husband and a wife trying to work together, because that is what we're trying to hope for. I want you to have that so that trope will play in the back of your mind. I want you to see that because that'll be something that you desire. And if you desire that and you build up that desire, then that spirit is going to go before you. But if you're sitting around and you're watching things about women being used and abused, or you're watching things where Pookie and Ray Ray are the sex symbols, then what's going to happen is you're going to continue to lust for Pookie and Ray Ray, which means that energy is going to go before you, which means that is going to be the guy that you're going to end up running into over and over and over again. But when you get a mindset of the type of guy that is going to take care of you. And see, that's what a lot of people, both men and women, need to do. They need to sit back and think and be like, what type of person do I really need? What type? I mean, like I say, it got to be perfect, but it needs to have a few factors to it, if that makes sense. And so you need to be sitting back and being like, what do I need? What do I need? And then just allow that. Once you have that solid in your mind, allow that to come to you. And then try to find things that encourage your mind to think on that. Don't think on the bad things. Think on the good things. Because see, whatever you think about, whatever you concentrate on is what's going to come to you. That's another reason why so many black women and black men need to stop saying there are no good black people. There's no good black women. There's no good black men. That's why I never say stuff like that. I always say that there's plenty of good ones. And guess what? I run into lots of good ones all the time. But if you say there's none good out here, then that is going to be your reality. You are speaking it into being. And that's also why, like I say, from a biblical perspective, God talks a lot about what comes out of your mouth. In fact, Jesus says that when we get to heaven, every idle word that we talk about, we will have to basically defend ourselves before God, because your words have power, because you're walking in the Spirit of God, and God spoke and the world began. So that is the power of your words. So if you're walking around and you're basically like, there's no good men out here, I just can't find no good guys, then that's your reality. And if you say, well, all the good women overseas, then that's your reality. You have to instead take a mindset of going in and saying, you know what? I'm going to find some people. There's some people here, blah, 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 blah. But before you even do that, you need to know what those good people look like. And you need to have an energy within you that says, I am looking for a person that is kind of like this. They might not be exactly, but they need to have the essence of what you're looking for. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. But to get back to the quirky, awkward black girl, she exists. Same thing, the introverted woman exists. Same thing, the shy black woman exists. The artsy black woman exists. Okay? There's all these different types. Do not believe that there is just one type, even though that is what media is trying to force feed you. All right? So anyway, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.